Hey BC, how's it going? I apologize in advance for the bad lighting and probably low volume of this video, but yeah, the whole world's asleep right now because I'm recording this in the middle of the night, so I gotta be kind of quiet. Anyways, I didn't really buy too much this week, just two things. Well, I think like four things, but two of them were CDs, and they're both in my car right now. But I do actually have one. One of the CDs I got was a, just a CD version of a record that I have, so I'll show that here and I'll point that out. And one of these records, I'm just kind of reiterating how much I like it. I showed it in my last video. It's the band Alvvays, spelled with two V's instead of a W. Their new album, Anti-Socialites. Some were really good. I didn't really emphasize that enough in my last video, I don't think. If you've never listened to this band before, I would say probably start with this one other than their, or rather than their debut. That one's good too, and I like that one. But I think this one's a little better, honestly, and it's new users or new listeners will enjoy it. I think maybe try out the song Plimsoll Punks, or maybe Hey. But yeah, pretty solid album. So the two new records I got, this is kind of cool. This is a Thelonious Monk record called Crisscross. I believe this is like a compilation of tracks from before he signed on to Columbia. But either way, this is like his second Columbia release. I have Monk's Dream already. This is an original 2i stereo. I'll go ahead and pull it out. From my jazz records, I don't know why, it's kind of satisfying to me to keep them all uniformly in these resealable type sleeves. There you go. 2i stereo with the black stereo lettering. Can't really go wrong with Monk. I mean, he was a little, he still had a commercial appeal while maintaining a kind of artistic, experimental freedom. Maybe he died too young, but I think he was kind of opening that door for the more experimental side of jazz, or what jazz could be. I don't think everyone kind of agrees with that, but as far as my understanding of jazz, which is very almost, I don't want to say like surface level, but I haven't really delved into the side of like free jazz or any kind of avant-garde or anything like that too much. I mostly stick with the typical, bop, hard bop, maybe a little big band, and some vocal jazz pop. Classic right here, U2, Unforgettable Fire. This was $5 at half price books. Records like Near Mint. Cover's got a little bit of wear. You can see it better on the back cover. Not too bad. Just normal, standard US version of this. The opening, Sort of Homecoming, that's one of the better opening tracks U2 ever had. Not that I'm the biggest U2 fan. Obviously their 80s material is pretty good, but yeah, not a bad album. I think this is like 84, so right before Joshua Tree, I think. Alright, well, that's all the new arrivals. The ones that are in my car, I have a CD of Black Star by David Bowie, and what was the other CD I got? Oh, I've got Nirvana Unplugged, MTV Unplugged in New York. Two classics. This, when this came out, Black Star, it was pretty much an instant classic, and then not only because of the fact that it turned out to be his last, or that anything to do with that. This would have been one of his best albums, especially in the past few decades. It would have been one of his best albums in any case, but even as it stands, I think I might even put this in my top, definitely my top 10, maybe even my top 5 David Bowie albums. It's just so solid. There's not really a weak moment on here. Maybe if I had to pick one, I'm not the hugest fan of Sue in A Season of Crime, but you know, as it goes. The packaging on this album is awesome too. I mean, cool die cut cover with what has been determined to be like a stylized version of spelling Bowie, using only star patterns, so like a B and O. These two make a W. You know. And the record's kept in the front sleeve, like a transparent sleeve, pretty nice. You can see the die cut there. And cool gatefold, nice star pattern, good use of glossy printing versus the more matte style, or not even, this isn't even like a matte material, it's just like normal sleeve material, laminated, and then more of a glossy type printing. It's like black on black. It comes out as a very nice release, and then it has a pretty nice booklet with it. It's nothing too crazy, but it's just nice to see someone still paying attention to the quality of a new release of a record, which I know this came out in 2016, but still. Also the CD version, similar thing, except it has a white cover with no die cut, and it's still got like the black on black printing on the inside. So that's a recent thing I've been listening to. The rest of these are in that same vein, just stuff I've been listening to lately. This band, The World is a Beautiful Place, and I'm No Longer Afraid to Die, kind of a long band name, which I think they've kind of grown to resent that a little bit, but you know, too late to change their name now. This band, the members shift around constantly. So, I mean, I think there's like maybe, of the original members, or at least the ones that played on this album, we can see there's 10 people credited as musicians on this album. I think out of that, there's like maybe 4, maybe 5 that are still in the band. This album was, I want to say, oh man, I think this album was like 2012, 2013. I want to say, yeah, 2013. Yeah, they kind of get thrown in with the whole emo revival thing. And they definitely have some emo elements. I would more say emo or post emo, is that a thing? In the same vein as like Foxing, or a little bit of Brand New mixed with like some Godspeed or Explosion in the Sky, and generic punk influences. But yeah, this is their first album, Whenever If Ever, from Top Shelf Records, and I highly recommend it to anyone that's never listened to the band. Just start track 1, go, if you like it, go straight to the end of the album, just straight through. I don't think you'll be disappointed in that. They have a new one coming out later this month. I already have pre-ordered the one of the band exclusive variants. There's like 3 variants so far in the US. But yeah, those are always nice albums they put out. I listened to T-Rex Electric Warrior this week. You can see my copy's not in the nicest condition. The record's decent, but yeah, just a classic album. It's definitely very accessible for T-Rex. Got some pop sensibilities on here, some psych leanings, some classic rock leanings, some glam elements in here, a nice little mishmash of guitar-based music elements. Not a bad track on here either. It flows nicely as a whole record. Transitioning into the Season of Autumn, you can't go wrong with a little bit of Death Cab for Cutie. I don't know which number of records theirs is. It might be like their 6th or 7th record. It was from like 2008, called Narrow Stairs. Something interesting about the packaging of this album that it's not on the CD, and I had never known about it on the LP, and you can't really see it that well from this camera perspective, but it has these die-cut rectangles that whenever you pull out the the jacket, which is getting stuck in here now, you pull out the sleeve on the inside, there's these cut-out rectangles. Just a nice small little detail for, you know, what is just a normal priced album. You know, you can get this for like $17.99. I've mentioned before in this video, I definitely appreciate little details in the packaging like that. You know, a nice gatefold, or just like a nice idea to make the packaging a little more interesting or unique is always fine by me. A little older here. I've had this for a few months. This is Traffic's self-titled album. This is their 2nd one. I've had this since December. I actually remember where I got it. I got it at the Half Price Books flagship store in Dallas. My girlfriend took me there. I'd never been there before. Pretty cool record. It's got a nice mix of a little more out there psych and some pop sensibilities with maybe even like a little R&B. There was one song that was really jumping out at me as R&B. I don't remember the name of it. It was like one of the last 2 on the first side, I think. Nice, even like soul influence on that track. Good one from Traffic. The Bats, Daddy's Highway, really creepy album cover. I think these guys were from New Zealand. Yeah, Wellington, New Zealand was their record distributor. But pretty standard mid-80s like jangle pop, in the vein of like The Clean, or even like the Feelies from the US. All kind of in that REM / the Smiths kind of proto indie rock, really. I mean, how many bands nowadays exist in that kind of vein of just they just play really jangly rock music, indie rock music on, you know, like Fender Jazz Masters or stuff like that, you know. But this is a good album. It's got I think it did fairly well in New Zealand, and I think this is a good entry point for anyone that might be interested in something like that. Maybe take a look at the tracks. Block of Wood, Daddy's Highway, and North by North is pretty good too. That one's slightly moodier, but yeah, cool album. Last up, we got Television's Marquee Moon. This is an original US pressing on Elektra. I got this a few months ago. I had to pay up for it, but I think it was worth it, you know. I was kind of thrown off a little bit because I'd only had the CD version of this before, and Marquee Moon that closes up the A side. You know, it's like I think it's like an 8-minute track or something. It just kind of, or it might be longer. It might be like 12 minutes, but on the LP it just kind of fades out. Whereas on the CD it plays to the full end of the recording. So yeah. Actually, I think the weakest track on here is the closer, Torn Curtain. I feel like maybe I'm just missing something on that song. It didn't really land as solidly for me as every other track on here. But like I said, this is the kind of thing that I just need more of. You know, I need their second album. I need more punk in general, which these guys don't really fall into like the hardcore punk spectrum, but they were definitely in that CBGB wheelhouse, as like Talking Heads and you know, like Blondie. Also, and speaking of CBGB, there was a CBGB which for those that don't know, CBGB I think stood for Country Bluegrass Blues, I want to say. Um, it was the CBGB Club, Country Bluegrass Blues Club. This music venue in New York that opened in like the early to mid '70s. There's a movie about it, which maybe isn't the most historically accurate, but it does kind of get the nicest like a good entry level of knowledge or basic understanding of what the club really meant and how important it was to music as a whole, really, not just the New York punk scene, but to punk as a whole, and really to music as a whole through the late 70s and early 80s, as it got more and more popular. You know, I think Television was one of the first bands that the owner let play in the club. He wanted to just have, you know, that kind of the country side of music play there, but he said, you know, why not? Why not have just anybody play? Because his big thing was they just had to, no covers were allowed. They had to only play original songs, and the only bands that would want to play there were these up and coming punk bands. One of the first ones happened to be Television, and it kind of became, as it grew and grew in popularity with Talking Heads playing there. They famously mentioned CBGB in a song off of their, I think it's their third album, Life During Wartime. They mentioned CBGB. Blondie got big there. Patti Smith got big there. Big record executives were known to start hanging out there, or scouts hung out there looking for up and coming artists. So many great punk bands got big there. The Ramones. All these great musicians just got discovered at this tiny little dump, really, in the bad part of town. It's just a cool story. I'd recommend anyone. Like I said, there's a movie on Netflix called CBGB that gives a pretty good understanding, probably than I can at this time of night, as I'm so tired. But yeah, that's it for this week. So I want to thank all the subscribers that have joined on lately, and I'll catch you guys next time. See ya.